Welcome to part 2 of our Fun Cup season review. In the first part of our look back at the 2019 championship, we covered the first 4 races of the season, with JPR Uvio taking victory in the season opener at Brands Hatch and the early championship lead. Defending champions 2 Rent Dominoes were their nearest rivals in the standings after the first few rounds, despite not yet taking a race victory. Team Trumans, though, had won a race, their maiden Fun Cup victory coming in round 3 at Croft, pushing them up to 3rd place in the table. There were race wins too for DispatchBay.com, victorious in round 2 at Alton Park. And at the end of our first report, we also looked back at a maiden victory for JPR Axiometrics, which came in the first of 2 races at the Dutch circuit of Zandvoort. That race also signalled the first poor result of the season for JPR Uvio, engine issues dropping them out of contention and handing the championship lead to 2 Rent Dominoes, who came home in 4th place. We're back at Zandvoort as we pick up the story of the season, with the second encounter of the weekend held in much kinder conditions than had been endured in a very windy race 1. Round 5 of the Fun Cup would see Team Viking taking pole position from the random grid draw, and for the first time this season, 2 Rent Dominoes would start from the front row. Much better conditions then as they get the race underway. It's Mark Home to the left of the picture for Team Viking. They've had good grid draws so far this weekend, but look, it's Chris Hart charging around the outside to get the lead of the race, and Paul Rivette making his first start in the Fun Cup. Not his first drive, but his first start. I think he's about to go second. GCI going wheel to wheel with If Motorsport, so Craig Butterworth in the black and white car moves ahead of Paul Stewart, and on board with Riley Phillips, who came from 6th to 1st yesterday, as he charges through as well. So he slots in between them into 5th place. On board with Ed Worthington into the hairpin. He's coming from 18th on the grid. Up ahead, the white 61 car of Ian Payne, PT Motorsport. That moves ahead of the Gary Bate 207 Track Life car. And we go wheel to wheel with him now. Ed Worthington's got the inside line as they go down the hill, through the left-hander, and begin the rise up towards Rob Slotemacher corner. Fantastic view this as they whip past and charge through then to the top of the course, and then it begins the descent down through the right-hander at Scheibach and down towards Master Corner. The top 4 then together. It's Paul Rivette in 2nd place. Here's a replay of the start. Team Viking and Mark Home got off the line well. The F Motorsport car of Paul Stewart, the red, white and green car, had a pretty good start but couldn't get anywhere, so whipping around the outside were the other 2. And this was a great start for Chris Double in the green Axiometrics car. He gained 3 places, look, into turn 1, and that was him moving ahead of Ed Worthington through Tarzan. So it is Chris Hart leading for 2 Rent Dominoes, and there is a change for 3rd place. That's Craig Butterworth in the 111 car moving ahead of the pole-sitting Team Viking car. And look at this, 3 together. Oh, up ahead the 249 Team 7 cars had a spin as you go on board with Ed Worthington. He gets 1 place, not the other. It's the JPR Alpha car which comes out ahead, but the 249 car of Alan Brown, I'm afraid, having a spin and has to wait for the rest of the field to come through. There's the 221 DispatchBay.com car. Riley Phillips going well once again, but with Jonathan Hode and Team Trumans right behind him. Back on board with Ed Worthington. This is a brave move around the outside of the chicane, and it is perfectly executed. Fantastic driving that to move ahead of the number 99 JPR Alpha Racing car. Good crowd gathered here for the second Fun Cup race of the weekend. And here we go. This is where all the slipstreaming is now about to start, as over the line they come. So hugging the inside line already is Chris Hart, the race leader, drawing alongside in the Truman's car, and right behind trying to push his way through is Riley Phillips. It's almost going to be 3 together, but it will be the Team Truman's car that gets through. Braving it around the outside is Riley Phillips, but he might be a bit too wide. The 2 Rent Dominoes car comes through up to 4th place meantime. That's got the JPR GT radial car. It's still absolutely wheel arch to wheel arch here as Chris Hart tries to squeeze through. But Hode's having none of this. The Croft race winners lead the way into the hairpin, and Riley Phillips now gets back at the inside, and down he goes into the hairpin and through to 2nd place. There are 5 mandatory pit stops in this 3-hour race, so a pit stop every half an hour. There is Andy Bicknell getting ready to take over from Riley Phillips for DispatchBay.com. The Track Life 207 car is in. Gary Bate and Simon Smith switching over. At Apollo, get ready for their stop. Guy Wenham comes in. Hopefully they get further than the first stop this time. This is where they had their problems yesterday. Ryan Burke's going to get in. At the same time, in comes the 2 Rent Dominoes car, which has slipped back. So that was ahead of Apollo Motorsport. Good stint again from Guy Wenham to get them into the mix. Out gets Chris Hart, in gets his new teammate for the day, Neil Burrows, who drove with him at Croft, because Henry Dawes has had to go home for day 2. And the Apollo car with a good stop gets out ahead. It's a change of bonnet though, look, which is delaying the 2 Rent Dominoes team. And that's related to the front splitter, so that must have been damaged. So it's either made contact with another car or run off the road somewhere. Neil loses quite a few seconds though, and no doubt, as it was so close out on track, he's going to lose quite a few positions. This replay might reveal all. This was at the end of Chris Hart's stint. Oh, and he just locked up and bounced over the curbs, through the gravel trap, back over the curbs. Lost positions to Andre Gies in the GT radio car, Paul Rivette, and also to Guy Wenham, which is why he was behind Guy when they came into the pits. So that was what caused the damage. Into the second half of the race here at Zandvoort, and it hasn't been a good weekend, I'm afraid, for PLR Racing. There is Neil Plimmer back together with his old teammate Jeff Fawcett this weekend. Problems with the car all weekend long, and Jeff had a spin earlier on as well, so struggling for pace at the moment. And there is the dispatchbay.com car then of Riley Phillips. He's got back into the lead of the race. They dropped down the order a bit after the first stint due to a longer pit stop with refueling, but then everybody else had to refuel later, and they've come back into the mix now with good drives from Andy Bittnell and Harry Mailer in their first stints as well. So Riley Phillips leads for dispatchbay.com. Mark Home is second for Team Viking. Uvio having a better day with their new engine are into third place at the moment, but with right behind them the Apollo car, the Truman's car. Into the garage has been the 214 Royal Motorsports car of Paul Rivette, who was in the lead battle at the start of the race, and his teammate Alex McLeod. Alex has been getting better and better in terms of pace with expert tuition from Paul Rivette, but the car now a number of laps down. Right, back on board with Chris Hart for 2 Rent Dominoes. He's found somebody to play with, and it is the Aguat Calianti car here, the 171 machine. Derek Basham behind the wheel of the green machine at the moment. If it stays like this, they're fighting over 11th place. It would be the worst result so far this season for 2 Rent Dominoes, but every point counts in this championship, and they're on the lead lap. If there were to be a safety car, they'd still be very much in the hunt at the end of the race. For now though, cannot find a way past Agua Calianti. JPR GT Radial are in the hunt for a podium today as well, and we can hear now from Andre Gies down in the pit lane.
We were quite unlucky yesterday. We led the race twice for over 10 seconds. And then we had a problem in the pit stop, then we had a problem in the pit stop again. And then a safety car took all of our advantage over the other cars. And then in the end only P5 was the result. This was a little bit disappointing because we hoped for the win because we were the fastest yesterday, I think, or one of the fastest. And we're doing today good again. I think we still have a chance on the victory, and of course we are fighting for it as hell.
Final round of pit stops, the leaders are in, and Harry Mailer is taking over the dispatchbay.com car from Riley Phillips, but the back of the car is coming up. There's a problem, there's an issue, and the sledgehammer is out, and that is never a good sign. So Harry has to sit and wait while they try and fix the problem. Meanwhile, FNS and GCI are together again, like they were at the end of yesterday's race. They could be in the top 6, these two. It's Greg Evans versus Craig Butterworth, and then it's Chris Bridle versus Farkini in the battle between Team 7 Fun Bikes and Uvio, who could also, after a bad day yesterday, both finish in the top 6 here. But effectively, this is going to be for the lead of the race now, with dispatchbay.com having their issues. They've yet to make their pit stops, but it's Axiometrics, Viking and Apollo all together now. Into the pits come Axiometrics and Viking at the same time. So a race between the pit crews. There is no fuel going in. Thrown out of the car and onto the floor is Mark Home. They don't care, they just want to get in and out as quickly as possible. They can sort his grazed knees out later on. And now Chris Weatherall is strapped in for Axiometrics. Can they get him out before the Viking car? It's going to be tight. It's going to be very tight. They're side by side down the pit lane, but the Viking car critically gets ahead. So Weatherall is going to be behind none as they go into the final few laps of the race. Meanwhile, Chris Bridle is edging well clear now of Farkini in the JPR Uvio car. That car very much down on power yesterday. They had issues with that car here at Zandvoort last year as well. So we're starting to wonder if it's something to do with the atmosphere or the salty sea air or something like that. But it hasn't been a great track for them in the last couple of years. If Motorsport go back out, they had a good midfield finish yesterday. And on board now in this battle for the lead of the race between Viking and JPR Axiometrics. Apollo are still in the hunt as well here. Clipping the inside curve then as they go through. Shivlak is the race leader, Nick Nunn, and working away at the steering wheel is Chris Wetherall. He's going to have a go, and he's going through down the inside this time. Outside yesterday, inside this time. It's turn 9 today, it was turn 1 yesterday, but it's the same result. Axiometrics get the lead of the race. Trying to catch them up then. Ellis Hadley for JPR GT Radial at the end of the race. Back out, having lost 5 minutes or so is Harry Mailer, so they are well out of the top 10 now, well down the order. The 104 car, which went well yesterday, of Team Kennedy, has had a delayed stop as well. That had to be recovered to the pits. So shame for them after good pace in yesterday's race. So on board then with Chris Wetherall, the race leader, but that does not sound good. The gears, he can't get the gears in. And there through comes the Viking car, Nick Nunn into the lead of the race. The Apollo car comes through as well into second place. And Heartache with just a few laps to go. Chris Wetherall is grinding to a halt. Look at these two, GCI and FNS, and Greg Evans and Craig Butterworth make contact. Wing mirror is dislodged, he's onto the grass. He tries to snap back up the inside unperturbed, but he cannot quite do it. Now the Axiometrics have gone, these two are battling over 4th place. Here's a replay then, squeezing the gap down. There's contact onto the grass, wing mirror off, and Greg Evans with a wild ride, and then he tries to snap back up the inside of the 111 car straight away. Behind them, the Truman's car a lap back in 11th place, not having their best weekend here. Some troubles today, but through the chicane for the final time, Nick Nunn, who has fended off Guy Wenham for the last half a dozen laps. He's just got 2 more corners to go. And the FNS car has got a headlock over the back of the circuit. So FNS on for 4th place here. Down to 5th place, GCI Racing. Team 7 in 6th place, but here we go. For the first time in their Fun Cup careers, Nick Nunn and Mark Home are going to be race winners for Team Viking. They're the 5th different race winners in 5 races, and that is the 3rd race on the trot now that a team has taken their maiden race victory. This championship is wide open.
Couldn't wish for a better weekend, really. P3 in the first race, and to win the last race, yeah, just awesome. Yeah, really hard battles, but yeah, great.
If you look at the times today, anybody in the top 15 could have come across that line. I mean, it was so close, and it's not really till the last 20 minutes of the race does it come into that frenetic, trying to go for the podium position. But yeah, fantastic.
Round 6 of the 2019 Fun Cup took the teams to the Welsh coastal circuit of Anglesey for an 8-hour into the night race. Championship frontrunners Team Truman's drew pole position, with Aguacalianti joining them on the front row of the grid. Having won the previous race at Zandvoort, Team Viking had to start from last place. So it's Jonathan Hode in the purple Truman's car that leads the field round towards the end of this formation lap. Alongside him in the green Aguacalianti car is Rob Perry. That team looking for their first win in the Fun Cup. The lights then about to go out. And we go racing here at Anglesey, on board with Rob Croydon for Team Kennedy. He's getting alongside and drawing past Jonathan Seymour in the Team 7 car. And look at that, a very aggressive start for John King in the black and red Team 7 Fun Bikes car. He's made up position, so too the turquoise Raw Motorsports car of Alex McLeod, who's gone from 7th to 5th and into 2nd place. Into the banking for the first time has got Nigel Greensall, so he's split the 2 front row starters. Is Chris Hart, the championship leader, who's trying to come from 16th on the grid. He's drawing alongside the 249 Team 7 car of Alan Brown, and he's going to whip around the outside of him on the way into Church Corner. There he is now, notoriously quick on the first laps of the race. Indeed, quick all the way through the races normally. He's drawing alongside now Chris Dovell in the Axiometrics car. Just ahead is Ryan Burke in the Apollo car. And there we've got the 2 leaders side by side, and Nigel Greensall pounces on his return to the championship. He's got the lead of the race, and here comes Chris Hart, slices past 1, 2, 3 cars. Can he get the car stopped in time? Yes, just about, as he makes his way through Rocket and through the chicane. Fantastic move from Chris Hart. There's a change for 3rd. as Andrew Bentley in the blue and black TfL racing car made its way past the Agua Caliente machine of Rob Perry. So from second down to fourth now for Rob, who's going to emerge in fifth place. That's going to be the fast-starting Jonathan King in the Team 7 Fun Bikes car, with Ben Pitch in the red PLR racing machine just behind in sixth place. A bit off the pace though, dropping down the order on this first lap to the tail end of the field is Jonathan Seymour in the 263 Team 7 car. Out onto lap 2 then they come. This the battle for fifth place, just behind in seventh place. A good start for Alex McLeod initially, but he's dropped back to where he started now in seventh. Ben Pitch trying to come around the outside here at the right-hander at the banking. There's nothing doing there. John King, who's getting more and more experienced in these cars, managing to fend him off for the time being. Back on board with Chris Hart, who went from 16th to 8th on the first lap of the race and is about to go 7th, I reckon, because he's got a much better run coming out of Church Corner on Alex McLeod. Alex will still be alongside him, but a left-hander coming up for the first part of Rocket at the top of the hill. Absolutely nose to nose they go, with the GT Radial car just behind as well, Martin Gibson, and on board with Rob Croydon. Chris Hart goes through, gets into 7th place, and Rob Croydon steals a place as well. Crafty bit of driving that, he let them all bunch up, then carried more speed into the corner, and the Team Kennedy car gains a place as well, up to 9th position, trying to fight back after losing a few places on the first lap of the race. And then just behind, rounding out the top 10, is the GT Radial car. Now there's been a change for 5th place as Ben Pitch has got ahead of John King, and look at that, squeezing down the inside through the corkscrew, Chris Hart with another brave move. Just 150 metres or so behind the circuit is the Irish Sea and the coast, and you can see just how rough the waters are because we've got gale force winds blowing the cars around the track here. There's your race leader, Nigel Greensall for Greensall Motorsport. Second place, dropping back now though, the pole-sitting car of Jonathan Hode, Team Trumans, who are third in the championship standings. TfL Racing and Andrew Bentley having an excellent run in third position on their own at the moment. And then you've got the Agua Caliente car, which started on the front row of the grid in fourth place. On board with Rob Croydon, who is battling here with Steve Walton. They keep changing places. They've swapped around a few times in the last couple of laps, and back up the inside of him, taking the draft and taking the inside line should be Steve Walton. Yep, the FNS car appears, and following him through is Ryan Burke for Apollo Motorsport. So that will put Ryan back into the top 10 after he lost a bit of time with a grassy moment a couple of laps ago. It's normally Guy Wenham that starts the car for Apollo, but it's Ryan's birthday today, so they've given him the honour. The team on a high after their first podium of the season at Zandvoort last time out. Now, having gone from 16th to 5th on the first few laps of the race, there's been an excursion for the 2 Red Dominoes car of Chris Hart, so he's back down to 15th place. As losing the back end of the car through turn 1, that's Ben Pitch. But what a recovery. Great reactions there from Ben, a full 360. But he's not actually going to lose a place yet, so he'll remain in 5th position. Here's a replay on board with Ben Pitch. Just got a little bit loose through turn 1. Around he goes, and quick as you like, he recovers it and back on his merry way. As the gusting winds continued to track across Anglesey, the drivers and teams got ready for the first round of mandatory pit stops. An issue with the 49 car meant that the early frontrunners TfL Racing had already been in once and were now several laps down. Their demise meant that Rob Perry in the Agua Caliente car had been promoted up to 3rd place, but he then dropped back out of the podium positions when Martin Gibson pounced for GT Radial. PLR Racing remained 5th, but Ben Pitch was being reeled in by the black Uvio car of Farkini and the pink DispatchBay.com car of Riley Phillips, which had risen from 14th on the grid. Carving his way up the order for a second time in the race was Chris Hart aboard the 2 Red Dominoes machine. A tight squeeze to get past Steve Walton for FNS in the sister car, but he was now back up to 8th place. And this was the view on board with Ben Pitch for PLR, as he lost out to JPR Uvio on the run up to Rocket. The pair of them side by side into the left-right sequence, and with the door open, Riley Phillips also took his chance to come through with some late braking for Dispatch Bay. Meanwhile, Rob Croydon got caught out with a spin at turn 1. There was no damage done, but the Team Kennedy car stalled, and that meant the safety car had to be deployed just as the first pit window opened. Everybody took the opportunity to pile into the pits at the same time in what would become a frantic 20 seconds or so for the pit crews. For 2 Red Dominoes, the safety car was good news, bringing them back in touch with the leaders. For others, like Raw Motorsports, a chance to replace broken bodywork. It also worked out for Team Trumans, who moved from 2nd to 1st. The safety car, though, had been costly for Greensall Motorsport. The huge advantage that Nigel Greensall had built was now completely wiped out. Into the second portion of the race, and it was to turn into another disappointing day for PLR Racing, as Jeff Fawcett brought the car in with a problem. The sticking gear was quickly repaired, though, and the car would still be able to finish with a decent result. Up at the sharp end, Henry Dawes had moved the Two Rent Dominoes car up to second place and was now right on top of the race leader. With a better run out of the banking, he looked down the inside on the way into Church Corner and made his move. With his racing line stolen, Richard Webb lost crucial momentum going onto the back straight. And with the Axiometrics and Uvio cars already on his tail, he would be a sitting duck on the uphill run to Rocket, dropping from first to fourth in next to no time. And there was more activity under braking as Fabio Randaccio put the Uvio car into second place. Zandvoort race winners Team Viking came in with an issue. They'd get back out, but any hopes of a podium were now gone. And a spin for Greensall Motorsport up at the entrance to Rocket would drop them off the lead group. With the sun setting and the winds still strong, the teams knew that a tough night lay ahead. After swapping the lead with Two Rent Dominoes a few times, Uvio were now well established at the front of the pack. The green Axiometrics car, driven at this stage by Chris Wetherall, was running in second place. And just behind there was a close scrap for third between GT Radial and Apollo Motorsport. But the big story was that the championship leaders, Two Rent Dominoes, were in trouble, a broken clutch bringing them in for lengthy repairs. And at the same time, the sister car was also in the garage with a problem. So Trumans were back up to fifth place. Team Kennedy and Team Viking were running with Colin Kingsnorth, but 8 and 10 laps down respectively. Electrical issues were now hampering DispatchBay.com, so they would be another front-running team to drop down the order. Royal Motorsports, meanwhile, were running in 8th place. Alex McLeod and multiple Clio Cup champion Paul Rivette on course for their best result together. The 251 Team 7 car of John Illy, Rod Barrett and Ed Worthington was also running well, picking up places to run just inside the top 10. Two Rent Dominoes were back in action, but running near the back after their problem. This would become their dropped score. With a relatively abrasive track and a long race, some teams, including Trumans, took the decision to change tyres, a rare sight in a Fun Cup pit stop, with the tyres normally lasting the entire race with ease. It was proving to be a real race of endurance, and Axiometrics had now dropped out of the top 3 due to a drive shaft problem, as the final part of the race headed into darkness. At 11 o'clock at night, the checkered flag was finally waved, and it fell to JPR Uvio, a dominant performance for Fabio Randaccio and Farchini to take their second win of the season and move back into the championship lead. JPR GT Radial got their best ever result in second, with Apollo taking their second successive podium, and a good result for Trumans in fourth.
Great job by the team, really good. Scott, Yoda, the boys, amazing. Really, really slick on the strategy, everything else, and we managed to pedal it okay.
With 2 races to go, Uvio now had a 21-point lead over Two Rent Dominoes, but with each team able to drop their worst score from the total, that gap was realistically much narrower. Trumans still very much in touch, third in the standings. Welcome back to our 2019 Fun Cup season review. Round 7 would take in 4 hours of the Silverstone National Circuit, with If Motorsport bagging pole and TFL on the front row after the random grid draw. In the title race, Two Rent Dominoes needed a strong result from 10th, with points leaders JPR Uvio starting last. So to the left of your picture, it's Andrew Dunn in the red, white and green IF Motorsport car that leads them over the line as the races go. The penultimate round of the championship gets underway, and into Copse Corner he leads with Charlie Kennedy from third to second on the way to turn one, ahead of Jack Mines. That's the dark green car of Agua Caliente and Rob Perry, moving ahead of Ed Worthington with the onboard camera. He's come from 9th on the grid, and he's now absolutely side by side with Morgan Tilbrook in the JPR Alpha Racing car, which started in 6th position. The leaders come in. Jack Mines just about hanging on to 3rd place from the green and white Apollo car of Guy Wenham as they make their way out through Beckett's and onto the Wellington straight here. Back on board then with Ed Worthington, trying to get a slipstream down the straight behind Alpha Racing, but Chris Hart draws alongside for 2 Red Dominoes from 10th on the grid. He's made a cracking start as usual, and we've got a change of lead on the way to Brooklands. Charlie Kennedy moving ahead of Andrew Dunn. So the Team Kennedy car leads from 3rd. In 3rd place now, it is Apollo Motorsport. Concord have followed through, and dropping down the order, the black and blue TFL Racing car from the front row of the grid of Jack Mines. So at the end of lap 1, it's going to be close, it's going to be side by side, but the inside line for Copse Corner should belong to Charlie Kennedy in the 104 car. Andrew Dunn tucks into 2nd place, side by side for 3rd, as well as Will Chappell goes down the inside of Guy Wenham and snatches 3rd for Concord. Terrific start from 5th on the grid. This is the view on board with Ellis Hadley in the 97 JPR GT radial car, trying to come from 25th on the grid. Just ahead, it's the GCR racing car, the black and white car, 111 of Ian Wood. That's just gone down the inside of the silver 251 Team Hawthorne's car, which is driven in the first stint by John Eiley. John comes under attack now from Ellis Hadley, but gets a better exit from Beckett's onto the Wellington straight. But Ellis is going to jink up the inside and have a look under braking on the way to Brooklands as we get a change for 3rd place. And for 2 Red Dominoes in the number 1 car, 2nd in the championship, up to 3rd place already from 10th on the grid for Chris Hart, ahead of Will Chappell for Concord and Guy Wenham. Here's Ellis Hadley, has already disposed of the Hawthorne's car. He's just gone up the inside of the GCI car, and now he's about to get better traction and better acceleration, and he's going to get 3 places here in 3 corners because he now moves ahead of Jack Mines in the TFL car. Meanwhile, here come the leaders into Copse Corner, and Chris Hart tucks in behind Charlie Kennedy and steals 2nd place away from Andrew Dunn in the IF Motorsport car. So that's 10th to 2nd now for the team, 2nd in the championship. JPR Uvio are trying to come from last place on the grid as winners of the previous race. And here to the very top of the order rises Chris Hart. He is not hanging around, and look at that for a move. Charging around the outside here in the red PLR racing car, that's Ben Pitch. What a move that was on the brakes. Here up the inside comes the green Agua Caliente car of Rob Perry. He's been tussling away with Ed Worthington, who carries the onboard of the Team 7 car, the 263 car. They head up then towards Brooklands, the left-hander, and towards the complex. And here comes Ed Worthington on the brakes. He fancies a bit of outbraking now. Down the inside he goes on the way to Brooklands. Up ahead there's a great tussle going on between FNS, JPR Alpha and Race Logic as well, in what is a very frantic opening few laps here at Silverstone. Right, take a breath. This has been absolutely nuts so far, this race. There is the Jack Mines TFL car, which started on the front row, struggling for pace. He's dropped to the back of the field, and there's been a spin for the GCI car of Ian Wood. That's down at Beckett's. He started to make progress from 23rd on the grid, but has just lost 7 or 8 positions. And down the inside of Rob Perry for Agua Caliente in the V-box backed Race Logic car is John Tomlinson for Race Logic. So good move there to put him up to 2nd place. But he runs wide on the exit to Luffield, takes 4 wheels over the curbs. And there's the FNS car that was running in 2nd place, having had a spin as well of Steve Walton. So Agua Caliente into 2nd, back down to 3rd place for Race Logic. 4th place now for Concord, 5th place for Uvio. What's happened to the Kennedy car? That was running in the top 3 last we saw. It's did not come through at the end of the lap. Back on board with Chris Double, who's right behind the Uvio car still, trying to follow him through as Fabio Randaccio dives at the inside of Will Chappell to gain a place. And there's the Team Kennedy car limping back to the pits with what looks like an engine problem. There's Steve Walton, who's quickly recovered from that spin at Lafille, but he loses the back end of the car at Copse. He has another spin at the start of the next lap. Around he goes, a full 360. He's at the back of the field, so nobody will collect him. Here's the squabble for third place, and you've got two former champions going absolutely together here. Uvio and Race Logic. Fabio Randaccio at the inside at Lafille squeezes through the inside of John Tomlinson and gains the place. After a typically frenetic opening stint at Silverstone, it was almost time for the first round of pit stops and driver changes. Axiometrics made a good stop, getting Christian Rose out ahead of the Uvio car. But they were narrowly beaten by Viking, the two Zandvoort race winners coming down the pit lane together. As the race developed, there was still plenty of close racing on track, but sadly Team 7 Fun Bikes would be taking no further part. An engine problem putting the team that finished 6th in last year's championship into early retirement. There were also engine woes for Agua Caliente after they had comfortably run at the front during the opening stint. On track, Axiometrics had found their way past Viking for the lead, but two Red Dominoes got past the pair of them to move into first place with this move at Copse Corner. Henry Dawes and Chris Hart looking for their first win of the season. For Apollo, though, another disappointing day as they went into retirement late in the race. Silverstone bathed in late afternoon sunshine as we go into the final round of mandatory pit stops. It's been a race of attrition, so despite running 3 laps down, Concord Motorsport are in 9th place. And the PLR racing car of Jeff Fawcett, Ben Pitch and Neil Plimmer grinding to a halt just before the pit lane entry. And in for their final pit stop then comes the only other team that looked likely to win this race. Out gets Christian Rose, a very good stint for him. He's happy with that. They were right together. Can they get out in front of two Red Dominoes? Chris Weatherall being strapped in. No refuelling for them either, so they're refueling every other stop in this 4-hour race, and looks like a pretty decent stop. The car released, it's got to adhere to the pit lane speed limit. It's going to feel like forever. They're right at the far end of the pit lane, so it's going to be a long run. And onto the start-finish line comes Henry Dawes, already up to speed, having made his pit stop. This is going to be close as he goes into Copse Corner, on board with Chris Weatherall. He glances left because there is Henry Dawes, and Henry Dawes and two Red Dominoes have kept the lead of the race, but only just. There's only about a second between these two, with 20 minutes or so of racing to go. Team Viking are in 3rd place in the yellow 110 car. A lap down, running in 5th place, the black and white GCI car of Craig Butterworth, but there is Marcus Clutton for DispatchBay.com, 221, catching rapidly. 4th place for Race Logic and Julian Thomas, despite the fact they've been having a rather lonely race. We're into the final 5 minutes of this 4-hour race. There's the number 1 car of two Red Dominoes, leading and pulling away from Axiometrics. So Henry Dawes leads, Chris Weatherall trying his best, but 2nd place looks like it's the best he can do in this race. Viking at 3rd, 4th place of Race Logic, 5th the Uvio, and this is the squabble for 6th place between GCI and DispatchBay.com. Out through Woodcut Corner they go. They're a lap down on the Viking car, which is 3rd and just ahead of them. And Marcus Clutton looks to the inside here, on the way into the right-hander at Copse Corner, and through he goes. So DispatchBay.com up from 14th on the grids into the top 6 now, with just a few laps remaining. Over the brow they go down towards Beckett's. There's the Truman's car, which is running behind the pair of them in 8th position. The team 3rd in the championship, losing points, but there's a crash down at Beckett's between GCI and DispatchBay.com. They've had a coming together. Marcus Clutton gets going again, but with some damage to the car, and they're both going to fall down the order. Time is almost up. There's the checkered flag, and here for the final time out of Woodcut Corner comes number 1, Henry Dawes, and two Red Dominoes take their first win of the season. Henry Dawes and Chris Hart will close the gap at the top of the championship table. Axiometrics come home in 2nd, and Team Viking complete the podium. Concord Motorsport pick up the Team of the Day award for finishing 7th on debut. Raw Motorsports and Greensaw Motorsport are 8th and 9th, and DispatchBay.com dropped to 10th after that late crash that was caused by a braking issue on the GCI racing car.
The car's been strong since this morning. Struggled with the setup in practice, but from this morning the car's been really good. Credit to the team. Got away early at the start, and yeah, we managed to stay out of trouble and maintain it. So really, really good.
I don't know how many years consecutively it's come down to Alton Park as the last race of the season. It's massive and I love it, and we all love Alton Park. I mean, it's going to be a real ding-dong round there because we're both all right round there. But hopefully Uvio won't win because nobody really likes him.
Three teams came into the final weekend of the Fun Cup at Alton Park, still in contention for the championship. JPR Uvio looking for a third success, Two Rent Dominoes aiming to retain #1 status, and Truman's in search of a maiden title. Uvio had a 10-point lead. A top 2 finish would guarantee the championship. To catch up, Two Rent Dominoes needed to win the race, with Uvio third or lower, or if they're both finished out of the top 2, they needed to be 6 places ahead at the flag. Truman's the outsiders, but a strong result for them, combined with lowly finishes for their 2 rivals, would still give them a chance. The random grid draw placed JPR Axiometrics on pole. Title contenders Truman's would start 4th, JPR Uvio back in 15th place, and as winners of the previous race at Silverstone, Two Rent Dominoes had to start at the back of the grid. The next 4 hours would define the season for each of those teams. Buckle up, everybody, because it's another Fun Cup Championship that's about to go down to the wire. The final round here at Alton Park gets underway, and JPR Axiometrics, the green car of Chris Double, leads the charge on the way into Old Hall Corner, but coming up the inside of him, the F Motorsport car from 3rd on the grid of Andrew Dunn, and there's contact further back and around into a spin, the green Agua Caliente car off the road as well, the Track Life, Team 7 Hawthorns, and also the PT Motorsport car as they come charging down through Cascades for the first time in the race. And look at that, the #1 car of Chris Hart has already, I reckon, got 8 cars behind him. He's got alongside him though, trying to go past him on the grass here. Alan Brown on the Team 7 249 car. Heart in mouth moment, but Chris survives, and look who he's ended up behind. His championship rival Farchini in the Uvio car. Chris started dead last, 23rd. Farchini started 15th, and Farchini locks up on the way up the inside of Andy Bittnell, the DispatchMay.com car, on the way into the Shallows hairpin. Brave move, and it was a bit tight, but he got through. So there's 1 car in between them now as they charge their way through the field on this opening lap of the race. Chris Hart now comes on the attack on the way into the Falston chicane down the inside, and he gets through as well. Tags himself onto the back of the Uvio car, which he knows he's got to beat today. So the leader is Andrew Dunn for If Motorsport. Chris Double for Axiometrics is second. A good start for Truman's in 3rd place, with Colin Kingsnorth on off the road for the GT Radial and Team Kennedy cars on the way through Hislops and Knickerbrook, and that means that the red PLR Motorsport car is one of the cars that's going to gain a position there, with Ben Pitch on board. Back on board with Chris Hart, following the JPR Uvio car as they make their way past now the 263 Team 7 cars. They climb up through Clay Hill. That's John Saunders, which started 9th on the grid, dropping back, and the Uvio car up the inside of another, the Greenheath car, and he's going to be followed through here at Druids by Chris Hart. Now here's a replay of the start of the race. First of all, look at the red, white and green car up the inside for If Motorsport to get the lead of the race. And watch the dark green Agua Caliente car as a coming together with Nigel Greensaw in the white Track Life car. The other 2 separately go off as well. There's damage to the left rear corner of PT Motorsports, and off on the road as well was the silver Sherrodice car. Yeah, they were trying to avoid the spinning 171 car and hit each other. So back on board then with Chris Hart as they make their way through this extremely quick left-hander at Island Bend. Hold on to it here, be brave, be brave, be brave, and then brake late as you dare on the way into the Shallows hairpin. Look at that! Around the outside of 2 cars, but he's got wide and he's alongside the Viking car, which is not going to let him through, so onto the curbs he goes. But Chris Hart did get past the Uvio car. And incredibly, that means that Chris Hart has gone from 23rd to 10th in just a lap and a quarter. Here are the leaders then, If Motorsport, and coming under fire on the way to Old Hall Corner from the car which started on pole position. So Chris Double there, having to go at the inside of Andrew Dunn, and he's still alongside him as they make their way down through Denton's and through into the lead of the race. Brave stuff that. Around the outside goes Chris Double, and then joining them in the top 3, you've got the Two Rent Dominoes car of Chris Hart, second in the championship, just a few points behind the championship leaders, and they've come from the back of the field to 3rd place now. And do you know what? Chris Hart is showing no signs of easing up here as he wrestles the car on the way through the left-hander at Island Bend, flat out towards the hairpin and around the outside of 2 cars. He's done this before. It almost worked. It did get him ahead of the championship leaders. He got one place that time. He's got them both this time, I think. Absolutely mega move there from third to first for Chris Hart and two Red Dominoes. You're right on board with him on the way to Falstons. And coming back on it though is Chris Double in the Axiometrics car, who leaps over the curbs and puts the 267 car back in front. So fantastic dice going on here. They go over Hilltop with the Axiometrics car, the two Red Dominoes car and the If Motorsport car all locked together. Uvio going side by side just behind for fourth place with Trumans, and into the lead of the race goes Chris Hart. He's gone from last to first in the opening stint of the race. Absolutely brilliant to the If Motorsport car. Andrew Dunn follows him through. So too the GT Radial car on board with Uvio, and side by side some contact going up Clay Hill. He's almost on the grass then was Farkini. The championship leader knows if he can stay here on this line, he'll have the better line going into the right-hander at Druids, and that is what he does. So take a breath. They're back on it again already. It's two Red Dominoes that lead. If Motorsport in second. Further back, you're on board now with another of the onboard camera cars. This is Will Chappell for Concord Motorsport. And he carries tremendous speed coming out of Druids as the 98 Track Life car that was slightly delayed by the Team Kennedy car. Up ahead, you got the Greensall Motorsport car of Ryan Lewis. That's Rob Croydon coming back up the inside of the way to Lodge Corner. Back ahead of Will Chappell with the onboard camera. And now wheel to wheel with the Ryan Lewis and the Greensall Motorsport car as the Uvio machine of Farkini up the inside of GT Radial to go third. The top six absolutely tied together. There's the 249 car of Alan Brown, who had a slight off on the opening lap of the race, going wide just in front of him and onto the grass, and then making contact as he rejoins his Alex McLeod, and then he goes across the bows of the 251 Team 7 car, goes halfway up the barriers, and that's a big impact. The other 249 car goes into the pit lane straight away. They're serving a drive-through penalty, it seems, for something separate. Is the PLR racing car. Damage to the left rear suspension of Alan Brown's car, and although he's going to try and get going again, there's huge damage look to the back of Alex McLeod's car. He's furious with himself. Unexpectedly, rain began to fall, adding another element of uncertainty to the title race. At mid-distance, Matt Hogg went off into the barriers, and the recovery of the Agua Caliente car brought about a safety car period. Not for the first time during the season, it fell during the pit stop window, and so Chris Hart led the entire field in for the first round of driver changes. JPR Uvio and Dispatch Bay, now up to third, followed right behind. A race between the pit crews ensued. No refuelling for either of the title contenders on this third stop. Slick work from the Uvio crew, and Fabio Randaccio was quickly on his way, passing two Red Dominoes to claim the race lead. But that wasn't the worst of it for the champions. Just a few seconds lost in their driver change came at a huge cost, with the field so tightly bunched. By the time Henry Dawes got out of his pit box, the team had dropped from first to 11th. After running fifth, If Motorsport had a high-speed crash at Druids and were forced to retire. While back on track, Randaccio was building a lead, but Dawes was driving like the wind, charging from 11th back up to third, and then he grabbed second place with this outstanding move around the outside of Axiometrics at Old Hall Corner. Utter commitment. Team Viking were running fourth, but this late race spin from Mark Home cost them a valuable 8 seconds. There was also a late off for Team Trumans, who were running 10th, not enough to keep them in the title race. Also coming unstuck briefly was Chris Dovell from Axiometrics, the team dropping from 4th to 7th. By the time Chris Hart handed over to Henry Dawes for the final time, two Red Dominoes were chasing DispatchBay.com for the lead. Dawes exiting the pits, less than a second behind Marcus Clutton in the pink machine. Uvio had dropped to third, but only 6 seconds adrift before the pit stops. Then came a pivotal moment as Dawes went for the lead, trying to outbrake each other. The two leaders outbrake themselves onto the wet grass, and Dawes slithering into a slow spin. The chance to win the race and the title gone in a flash. The time lost meant that Uvio emerged from their pit stop in second place. But with less than 15 minutes to go, Dawes moved back up to second place, still needing to win though to take the title. And FNS grabbed 5th place with this late move on Axiometrics. But even on the final lap of the race, two Red Dominoes and Uvio were still going at it. Dawes getting offline through Denton's to allow Randaccio back through. Meanwhile on the pit wall, Andy Bicknell and Riley Phillips awaited the arrival of teammate Marcus Clutton, who was now 26 seconds clear of that battle and about to head for the checkered flag. An up-and-down season for DispatchBay.com, but they were the kings of Alton Park, taking their second win of the season in Cheshire. A great result for Chris Welford and his Track Life squad. But the championship wasn't over. After 37 hours of racing in 2019, there was just one corner to go and they were still side by side. Dawes cutting back on the exit to Lodge, drawing alongside Randaccio on the run up to Deer Leap. and fittingly, after being inseparable all season, they crossed the line as one. Dawes stealing second place by 1/10 of a second, but JPR Uvio had done enough to claim the title. Viking finished 4th, FNS crossed the line 5th, just 29 thousandths ahead of Axiometrics, and PLR beat GT Radial to 7th by just 42 thousandths.
The team did a great job track life, and our sister car 98, fastest lap of the day, which is good, and team of the day, so and a win for our car, so yeah, fantastic day, really pleased.
So JPR Uvio took the 2019 Fun Cup title by just 5 points, chased all the way by 2 Rent Dominoes. Truman's best ever season, putting them in 3rd.
I mean, what a race. It was nose to tail from halfway through the first stint. Just amazing. But so happy to do it with this fella who came in. We had a torrid year last year, and I've told him ever since he came in that it would be his fault if we didn't win it. So now it's well done, mate. Well done.
I've been lucky over the years, raced a lot of different championships with a lot of different cars, and it's safe to say Fun Cup's the most competitive championship I've been in. Chris and Henry were belting all year. I mean, they've been so fast and so consistent as well, and to come down to the wire with like 5 points between us, it's just testament to those boys and what a great race they've given us all year long.
So the curtain closed on another terrific season. When it comes to entertainment, the Fun Cup delivers every time.